All right, so we've discussed my chest hair and muting me. So we're off to a great start, Kevin. So,
Priorities. That's good.
so first and foremost, again, Kevin, thanks for being on with us tonight, man. We
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
taking time to hang out with us and chop it up with us heathens and having a good time. And I just want to say that from a former Christian to another former Christian, I'm really excited, man, for you, and that you wanted to turn up the volume on your voice and be active, and be an influencer in our community, because there are a lot of people that have been in our shoes and have experienced what we've experienced, and there's still the intimidation and the fear to be vocal, and to have a voice. So kudos to you, man. I appreciate it, and I know there's probably people that you and I have never met and probably will never talk to that we've had a influence on, or at least help them along the way. So I appreciate that, and I know the other ones that follow your content would say the same thing. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that, man. And thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So let's dig into a little bit of the background. And one of the things that listening in stood out to me is you brought up Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames, and there was another one, and it's I love that you actually brought that up, because on our drive home, my now wife and I, on the way home, were discussing some of those things. And another one that I experienced was called I think it was called Hell Stop. And what it was is it was a Christian's version of a haunted house, and they would reenact car accidents, um, debacled surgeries, things like that, where your loved ones or friends would die. And what they would do is then put it in front of you. Okay, if this were to happen to you today or tomorrow, uh, do you know Jesus? Would you go to heaven or would you
God.
go to hell? So I think back to those things, and they're very similar, and I remember what those things did to me, and how now at 39 years old, how I feel about it looking back. When you look back at those experiences now, as an adult and a grown man, and you can think for yourself and make your own decisions, how do you feel about those things now?
That they're very manipulative. And that really they shouldn't be things like that shouldn't be shown to kids or teens, anybody who's not an adult, really. It's just awful. I've never heard of that one that you're talking about. That sounds like it might be even worse.
Yeah, and I would probably agree, because I do know the Hell's Gates, or sorry, Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. I know that format. I probably saw that skit or drama, whatever they wanted to call it, probably 100 times growing up.
Yep.
And the Hell Stop model, there's different names for it, but the Hell Stop model is definitely more fear driven. Much more. Not saying that Hell's Gates wasn't, but when you're literally putting kids in a quote unquote haunted house around Halloween time and reenacting car accidents where there's like teenagers that are like soaked in blood from a drunk driving accident or whatever, that's not normal.
No.
That's not how you convince somebody. That's how you scare somebody into doing something, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the people who put those things on are probably the same people who are anti regular haunted houses and think that they are bad, but they'll put something like that on, no problem. Just throw kids into a haunted house of hell. Yeah, sure. Because it's just slap a Christ label on there and we're good to go.
Yeah, which now where I'm at, I would much rather if I had to, I'd much rather have my kids walk through a regular haunted house than to ever go through one of those things where it's like, if you die, like we're going to depict, if you die, you're going to go to hell. I would do
Terrifying.
that. And I don't know about you, but my parents, they wouldn't allow me to go to a haunted house. There was no discussion. But
Yeah.
those things, oh, we could attend those things.
Yeah. Well, it's under the guise of church and under the guise of salvation. Like, this is gonna help you. Here, go into this haunted house for your soul's benefit.
Yeah,
No, man. That's horrible.
100%.
I'd never heard of that one before. But now I know
Yeah,
what I have to look up on YouTube next.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there. The other thing, Kevin, that I'd like to talk about is the you mentioned you had gotten a relationship as you were dating, and that ended. You know, that relationship ended, and it was with somebody that was, a believer. Seventh Day, I think you
Hmm.
shared. When that relationship ended, and you started to filter out of that and filter through those emotions and all of that, what were some of the things that you maybe had to come to terms with emotionally, when you're leaving not just a relationship, but realizing that not only is this relationship not for me, but this God church thing isn't for me at the same time?
Yeah, it was tough, man. I just had to really take a hard look in the mirror and think, I don't know if I can really be with a believer again, because of those differences, and because at some point it's always going to get to that point in a relationship if they are like a frequent church attender, or if you're looking to have kids down the road, you're going to have to make that decision about, do you raise them in church? Do you raise them, teach them how to think or what to think, kind of thing. And so yeah, after that breakup, before that breakup, I had never watched the ACA, anything atheist experience, never even heard of it. Like, and I've been an atheist for a long time, but I like just dove headfirst into YouTube and like started watching stuff about dealing with breaking up with religious differences and all that stuff, and that just led me down the atheist YouTube rabbit hole where I started watching Matt Dillahunty until 3 in the morning, and just binging all that stuff, and uh, it just really fueled the fire for what I'm doing now. I originally just started on Instagram. I was just gonna make stupid memes, and my original name was Jesus Shaves. Jesus Shaves, because I was just gonna do like just a couple dumb memes here and there, but it just really turned into something else. But yeah, that breakup was tough, man, because I'm like I said, I was indifferent about religion for a long time, just kind of like, whatever. It's not a big deal if somebody's religious. But then going through that experience, like feeling like I was really compatible with someone, except for that one thing, it just I was like, man, I gotta start doing start podcasting, start trying to find more people who are like me, because around here there are not that many people like in my everyday life who are outspoken non-believers. It's just a rarity down here. So I was like, I have to find community for like-minded people, and that's what I've done.
Right. And the one thing that I do appreciate about the community that we do have here is the atheist community, especially here on YouTube, is we love to help each other, and especially when people are coming out of that, when they're exiting faith, or they're running away from faith, is they try to help push those people forward and help them get better, just like Pasta has with me, and not just Pasta, but Steve and Jeff, and even Ben now, like they're always trying to help and assist, and that's one thing that I do love about this community is
Yeah.
we really do try to help, any way we can. So the the other thing I want to ask you about the end of kind of those, or the defining line, I guess, of those two relationships. One, the romantic relationship, but then coming to the point where it's like, okay, not only am I an atheist, but I feel like at this point now I need to be vocal about it, right? And I need to raise my voice, so to speak, about it. For me, I was going through a transition in coming out as an atheist, and deciding, okay, not only am I'm lacking belief, but I feel like I need to say, and I need to tell people what I've been through to help others. Uh, I was also going through a really, really nasty divorce, all at the same time. And there were moments, or pockets of that time frame that some days it felt really, really good. I was rejuvenated and excited. Then there are other days that I was just lonely and miserable, because I had lost not just a marriage and my family, but then this relationship with this God that had taken up majority of my time. So now I don't even know where to put my time. I don't know what my identity is, because my identity was in that church and in that God. So there was just some really dark nights, some really lonely nights. Did you ever experience anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Especially like when I first left the faith back in 2010. I mean, I played in the worship band at church. I was at the church like 3-4 days a week, just for services or for like band practice or whatever. I was always entrenched in that community, fellowship, whatever word you want to use. And then to go from that to like just kind of cut off from all of it, it was tough. And I was married at the time too, and then we got divorced a few years later. But actually, me leaving the faith didn't really affect our marriage all that much, because I guess she was still a believer, but neither one of us were going to church anymore and stuff. But yeah, it's just kind of been a roller coaster, man. Like,
Mhm.
because I was like so involved in the church, and then nothing, and then kind of really didn't have too many opinions on religion until last year. Boom, all of a sudden last year I find myself in this Seventh-day Adventist church for several Saturdays. Sorry, not Sundays. Not Sundays, Saturdays. And that
Get it right,
religion.
Kevin.
Yeah, the Sabbath, sorry. And just feeling like, man, this is really weird to be back in church, because it had been, 9 years or so since I had been in church. And then going through that whole thing again. I never really cared to go to church, and then the breakup, and it was just like that whole roller coaster, just falling back out of that again, and just feeling like that's when I decided I was like, I need to be vocal. I need to speak up, because for the last several years I haven't. And it gets to a point where you feel like you can let people talk about religion all day and post on their social media about their God and what he does and their favorite scriptures, and about Satan and about everything all the time. And you just have to suck it up and deal with it. And so it's like, why should I really have to hide how I feel about those same kind of topics? I shouldn't have to, just for
Right.
other people's sake, to spare other people's feelings. And I'll be honest, I still don't post much about atheism on my personal accounts. I did recently add all my Jesus unfollower stuff to my personal like bios and stuff, and that kind of felt like a big step for me, because it is hard. I don't have a lot of Christian friends. I guess I do. I have some, but I have a lot of acquaintances and stuff, and I really shouldn't be scared to lose those, because it's not like I ever really talk to them anyways. But it's still that feeling of, I don't know, like you kind of feel weird about posting stuff like that, and it's crazy, because it's almost like that was instilled in me years ago, that this stuff is taboo to talk about.
Yeah, and I went through that. Now I will say, mine was pretty brief, as far as worrying about, because if you went on my Facebook page right now, which I think you and I just became friends on Facebook today, actually, but
Mm-hmm.
if you go through there, I would say right now 3/4 of them are Christians, because that's my background, right? And there was a time that I hesitated to say anything, bring it up. But then every time I got on Facebook, it was like, well, they don't hesitate to put their shit down my throat. That they don't hesitate to tell me about their God. So
Yeah.
why should I be silenced? Why should I be quiet? So now, if you go on my Facebook page, all I talk about is tart. All I talk about is,
Good.
activism and everything, because it's, if you can use this platform to push your agenda, and you do it unabated, I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to combat that. So the other thing I think about a lot with people that have, backgrounds and childhoods like yours and I, or you and I, and what, not just the experience, but what it does long term. And for me, there was, and I'm not saying this is everybody. For me, there was a lot of abuse and religious trauma, and and all those things that were involved. And I never want to assume that anybody else has ever experienced that. But coming out of it, did you experience any type of abuse or trauma? The religious trauma, exiting faith, exiting religion, anything like that?
Actually, no, not really. That's one of the common misconceptions I think that a lot of people make. I know that a lot of people go through religious trauma and hurt, but people think that we become atheists only because of that. A lot of, I hear that a lot, like, oh, you just went through some horrible church experiences. My church experiences were good for the most part, except for that time that preacher grabbed my tongue and made me talk into a microphone. We can talk about that a different time if you want. But for the most part, my church experiences were pretty good, and I made a lot of friends. And but yeah, there wasn't that much trauma or abuse, anything like that. I mean, I did feel kind of emotionally manipulated by a lot of things, but I don't think it was done out of a place of bad intention. Those people truly believe that that's the truth, and they're living it. And so it's not like they're intentionally lying to me or trying to do any harm to me emotionally or anything like that.
Well, and that's what I try to tell people, because I agree with you. I don't think it was I don't think it's intentional in nature, uh, but it is built into the fabric of what they do. As far as the emotional leading, the psychological leading, that's just how they're taught. They're doing what they believe is right, even though
Right.
it's not right.
Right. Yep.
So I would agree with that. So no type of religious trauma or anything walking out, which I think is great, because you're right. Most current theists would say, well, you just hate God or you hate church, and that's not something that they can necessarily attach to you, because you don't make the claim of experiencing an abuse or religious trauma, anything like that. So I think that's a plus for you, because that's already no argument over.
Yeah. They have to understand that just like they're not all the same, we're not all the same either.
Yeah.
I'm doing some TikToks right now, a little series on that too, like misconceptions about atheists too, just to try to dispel some of that stuff, because we're not all the same. We didn't all go through the same experiences, and we don't hate God. It's nothing like that.
Yeah. And even with myself experiencing a lot of those things, I don't have a hatred for a God. I lack the belief that the God even exists. So how do I hate
Right.
something that I don't believe exists? And they say, well, then you had fucked up stuff happen at church, so you hate church and church people. No, actually I don't hate the church or the church people. My brother's the pastor of the church I went to, and I love him dearly.
Yep.
I talk to him all the time, so that's not valid. What it is I hate your belief. I hate the faith. I hate the religion and the construct, and the things they lay forward, that you have to do this, this, and this, or you're going to burn in a hell. That's what I hate. That people are controlled and manipulated by that. So would you share
Exactly.
that same? Would you share that same perspective?
100%. Yeah, it's not the God that we hate, that we don't believe in. It's the oppression and religion being injected into government and stuff like that, making laws around a God that the majority happen to believe in. And so, yeah, it's just the damage that can be done in God's name, not necessarily the God himself.
Right. Totally agree. Then going back to your church experience, so like I said, you stated no type of trauma or abuse or anything, but when you did, Kevin, when you finally walked away and you said, I'm really done with this. I'm done with the God thing, the faith thing. Um, did you lose friendships? Well, how was your family relationships impacted? What did that look like?
Um, I It's funny because a couple of my best friends also became atheists, so that was really good for me. But I did lose some friendships, and it was mostly, church friends. We just kind of went our separate ways. It's kind of on the reverse side of that. In high school, I lost one of my very best friends because I was the religious one, and he was not at all. And I was trying to tell him how to live his life, and that certain musicians that he was listening to were uh, that he was idolizing them, and that they were of Satan. And then our friendship just ended. So it's that friendship ending hurt a lot. And then now it's like, can I get that back? Can I get that back? Because I'm not a Christian anymore. But it's like kind of too late. But yeah, and my family, as far as my family goes, a lot of them still don't know that I'm an atheist. Only a few do. Luckily, My sister is not, like, she kind of left the faith too. So we're really, we've always been the closest, like, of all my family. So that has been helpful for me for sure. I haven't lost a ton of friendships though. Most of them, a lot of people probably think that I'm backslidden or whatever. At least my church acquaintances, that, he's just backslidden for a decade. He'll come back, kind of thing. But my best friends and stuff, most of my best friends, I'm still friends with, and it hasn't really been affected.
Okay. Yeah, because without going all the way into it, I lost just about all my friendships, and it was sad, because I thought, I thought we were boys, I thought we were cool, but it actually was it was a church thing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a relationship. It was just a church and a God thing. So, and I know, I know several people that have been fortunate like you to not lose a bunch of relationships, but I also know quite a few that got kind of left, high and dry, where it was like, well, I thought we were cool regardless of whether I, believe in your God or not. So, kudos to, kudos to your friends that didn't use that as an excuse just to, alienate or, ostracize, because that's usually what happens. What is one thing that you would maybe, some advice or this will be my last question. What's one, maybe two things that you would tell somebody that's trying to exit religion, exit faith, just little pieces of advice? What could they do? What questions could they ask? What's a good formula? Or, I don't know if there's a good formula, but what's a suggested formula to try to do that with, in the most healthy way possible?
I think the first thing is just ask yourself why you believe what you do, where that belief came from, and if you would have that same belief if it wasn't indoctrinated to you, if it wasn't told to you by your parents or by the people around you. Like, really think about it, and not just, kind of think about it. Like, really examine that and see why you believe. And second thing I would say is there's a big community on social media of people who are in that kind of same boat, where they're either like they'll call themselves like progressive Christians because they land somewhere in the middle, and they're not really, it's like a transitive phase, I guess, for a lot of people, or that they just have left religion. I think it's important to find other people who are similar, because you're probably not going to get that if you've been going to church all your life or whatever. You're probably not going to have a lot of those people immediately around you. So the internet is a great thing. Social media is a great thing for that reason, that you can just start to look around and know that you're not alone in those thoughts and those questions.
Right. And I know we've put a couple links in there, and really quick, Kevin, before we intro the murderous one in here, start doing some Q&A, where can they, anybody that's viewing, listening right now or later on, how do they find you on YouTube, the TikToks, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Tweeters? How do they find you?
YouTube.com/JesusUnfollower, or @JesusUnfollower on everything. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere. It's @JesusUnfollower. Facebook too. Or you can go to my website, JesusUnfollower.com. It's got everything there. Links to the podcast too. In addition to YouTube, I do the audio podcast too. So if you just want to subscribe to that, that's cool. So that's it, man. JesusUnfollower.com. You can find everything there.
Awesome. So if you're listening, watching right now, or in the future, go check our boy out. Make sure you subscribe, like everything. If you don't, it's your loss, not ours.